Coach, thank you for taking the time and want to express level of gratitude to guys like you, Coach Erickson, Coach Morak, guys who, when I come back, make me feel better than I thought I'd feel as an alum. Coming back definitely feels like home. I feel, included. You guys are always welcoming, so thank you. And your full name is not Coach; it's Charlie Manning, but I will refer to you as Coach for the duration of this. But yeah, I mean, some background for those who don't know you as much. You grew up in the southwest suburbs of Chicago. I went to Stagg High School, wrestled there, had a great career in high school, 2-time runner-up. Went on to wrestle at Eastern Illinois University. And obviously now you're here at Reavis High School. Head wrestling coach, have been the head wrestling coach for quite some time now. You've coached other sports as well, football, tennis, softball, I'm sure I'm missing some, but
1 year girl swimming.
here you
You
go.
got them all.
Knew I was missing something. And also the assistant athletic director. So a lot of different hats that you wear, a lot of roles and responsibilities. So again, just thank you for taking the time, and I want to get to definitely know some more about you and kind of dive deep into who you are a little bit more as a coach, as a wrestler, and stuff like that. So
Thanks for having me. This is a really cool opportunity. We love when our alumni come back. As a coach, it's one of my favorite things. Like when you guys pop back in, whether it be for something like this is a first for me, but when you guys show up to practice, even, 10 years out or 1 year out, I always love seeing our alumni come back, especially wrestlers. So this is a treat for me as well. Looking forward.
So I want to start, and I sent you, a few talking points that I wanted to touch on, but this one didn't pop up into my head until earlier when I was getting a workout in. As a head coach, you have two beautiful children, and I know Mason does wrestle, but for the sake of conversation, let's say both wrestled. And in putting aside the parent-child relationship, what do you want your children to wrestle for you?
So, yeah, that's a great question. My son's in his second year. He wrestles for Lincoln Way Wrestling Club. We live in Mokina, and I've coached him each of the last 2 years. So I'm the head coach of his group, not necessarily the program, but just his group. And it is different, coaching your own child. All the things I can separate myself from emotionally, even with wrestlers that you're really close to, like I was with you and some of your teammates. It's different when it's your own kid. You're just a little more vested, you're a little more emotional. And the experience I've had coaching, I've coached 18 years now in a row for high school wrestling. I felt made me a little more prepared to handle that because I've coached before I had a kid. I do try to give as much as I can to his teammates too. It's very easy to get kind of sucked into working with your son and his partner at practice. So we try to rotate a little bit, and the coaches I do coach with are good coaches. They know wrestling. So we do help out and kind of rotate around, coach each other's sons. But yeah, I feel that over the course of my career, I've developed a great sense for what it takes to be successful in the sport of wrestling, not just from a technical standpoint or from a physical standpoint, but mentally as well. So I really am enjoying the opportunity to coach my son, and our family's all in. My wife was a wrestling mom this year, so she was a team mom. And yeah, we're a wrestling family right now, and it's been a really good first 2 years for us. He's had a lot of success, and he's enjoyed it, and we're having a good time with it.
The wrestling runs deep for you. You've been wrestling for quite some time, and I want to know, hindsight's 2020, and I think the answer might be easy now, but I still want to ask it. If you, and I don't have the win versus loss breakdown in front of me, dating back to your youth days, but if you, outside looking in, it looks like you had a lot of success. You won a lot, right? And would you have continued with the sport if you didn't win as much at an early age? You get your hand raised, you get medals, you get bracket boards. If you didn't have that, would you have continued wrestling?
That's a great question. And I bet you the short answer is no. I tell parents that I coach now for their kids, whether it be high school or at the youth level with my son, that you do have to have a certain level of success to continue on with this sport, especially to get any better. I was fortunate. I started when I was 6 years old, halfway through the year, because my neighbor was a coach and he would drive me to practice. And I'm sure my mom was probably like, hey, get this kid out of my house. He's a maniac. He needs something to do. And I think I got pinned my first 11 matches. I was 0-11. I had no idea what I was doing. I was wearing like white Reebok sneakers. I didn't have wrestling shoes yet. And they kind of gave me a little extra time in the basement one day and taught me a couple things. And I think I went through a match. I didn't get pinned. And I finally won my match in like first match in the basement of some Lockport High School, I think. It was, like almost like a coach ref match. So it took a little while. And as I went through IKWF, I had success. I was fortunate to wrestle for the Lamont Bears with Jeff Feston. And when I went to the Orland Park Pioneers, coached by Joel Thole, who is a legend, Mike Irwin, who runs the IKWF, guys like Pete Andriotti, Paul Thole. We're awesome coaches. They were really hard-nosed, and our teams had a ton of success in the IKWF. We were very good. So it became a little bit of a pedigree or a mentality that you're good at wrestling, you work hard, and that's just the way it is. You make the sacrifices to make weight, you make the sacrifices in a tough practice, but without the success, I think it would have been hard. So I tell parents, you got to have a little success early on to keep them involved, to keep them not just motivated, but interested. So I do think there's a fine line on how hard to push kids without burning them out and putting them on the mats 5 to 6 days a week when they're 6 or 7 years old. But you want them to be competitive to keep them involved. If they're going out there and getting pinned every Sunday morning twice, well, that's not fun. It becomes harder and harder to get them to continue doing it. So like I said, the short answer would probably be no. I like to think I was mentally tough enough to push through it, but it's hard if you're not winning, if you're not having some success on the mats.
Was there a catalytic moment for you where you went on to wrestle in college and you have to have just a level of talent to wrestle at the collegiate level, to play any sport at the collegiate level? And was there a moment where you kind of realized, like, okay, I am better than the average wrestler? Like, was there maybe a match or tournament, maybe a string of tournaments? And I think for me, I think that might have occurred when, I'm trying to think back, I think I pinned it down to like one single moment, I think, in the car on the way here, but I think it was when I had qualified for freshman, sophomore state tournament the second year. So, freshman year, didn't really know what I was doing, and still kind of got there down in Springfield, and then I did it again sophomore year, and then I look back at the names in that bracket, and you can pick and choose. It's like, okay, state qualifier, state champion, NCAA, Division III, national qualifier, whatever. And I think it took me a little while. Once I saw those names kind of that I was surrounded with, I think that's when I knew that I was doing okay. Was there a moment for you where you felt like I'm better than average, I guess?
God, it's hard to think about it. Maybe just a moment. You were only a 4-year wrestler too, weren't you? Okay. You came a long way. You had some tough brackets. I remember that. And you were a natural. If you had more time, it would have been different for you. And wrestling's a sport of time. My coach in college said that. You just need time on the mats, drilling, learning. And you can learn wrestling from a lot of different people. It's good to be exposed to different styles. But, gosh, I qualified for state all 4 years as a kid. I qualified with, I think, 1-1 in my first year. And I didn't place. And I placed, the next 3 years. I was a couple of times runner-up as a kid. So I knew I was a good wrestler. But there were always guys I couldn't catch. As a kid, the guys that beat me, that just had my number. Maybe they spent more time wrestling, whatever it was. They were just better than me. I couldn't beat them at that time. And then in high school, I caught a couple of guys that I'd never beat. Not just freshman year, but even into my sophomore year, that guys who over the years probably beat me 8 to 10 times as a kid. And I caught them. I beat them that year. So that made me one time where, as a sophomore, even though I'd already qualified for state as a freshman in high school, you're always, comparing yourself to other good wrestlers. And that was probably a big one. I beat a guy who beat me in 8th grade for a state title, and I beat him at the Dvorak. And that was probably the first, top tier guy that I had never beat before, but I caught. So that was a big motivator for me, and seeing some of the hard work pay off and some of my coaches, the time they'd put in. So if I had to pin it down to one moment, that may have been where I finally knew I belonged, as an all-state wrestler, an upper echelon wrestler in the state.
No, one question I've always wanted to ask you, and I think I've always restricted myself from asking because I don't think I've necessarily came to terms with something that I think was a pivotal moment, maybe not even in my career, really like almost in my life, was I didn't qualify for the state tournament, right? For maybe a number of reasons that, like I said, maybe I haven't come to terms with yet. And you were a 2-time runner-up. Do you, sometimes if I were driving by, like Hinsdale Central High School or something, I'll think of that. This doesn't necessarily keep me up at night, but I do think of what could have been or what I didn't necessarily accomplish. And, I guess there was like a study on the Olympics, right? Like there was, the second place, like the third place, someone who got bronze might have been happier than the person who got, silver, right? Because they were just like happy to get on the podium. And, the person who takes second or gets silver kind of kicks themselves. Where does that come into play for you?
Well, yeah, there's definitely a saying. You always want to end with an odd number on the podium, right? It means you won your last match. So when you take second, you lost your last match. And, I think about them probably more than I should. And I tell myself it's because I'm a high school wrestling coach. I'm around it all the time. I see those schools all the time. I even see those guys that beat me from time to time, over the years. But yeah, when I was 8 years old, I went to the IHSA state tournament for the first time. And I realized what a state champion was. And I saw a grand march for the first time. And I set a goal in my life to be a state champion. And it was something I never obtained. I took, third, second as a kid, and I was a 2-time runner-up in high school. So I do think about it. Those are guys that I'd beaten before, and they'd beaten me before. And then that Saturday night in Champaign, it didn't go my way. They were close matches. I think about them. A lot of times, if I'm working out or if I'm on a run, or it's getting towards February, they kind of pop into my head because, we're competitive. Even though you're a coach now, I'm still competitive. And you think about, those tough losses. You don't always think about your victories or the ones that went your way, but it's the ones that got away that you just kind of always seem to remember. And again, I don't think about them every day, but I'd be lying if I didn't say they pop into my head more often than not.
How do you get over that? I think I'm still trying to, because, I had a couple ankle injuries, junior, senior year at the same tournament at the same time of the year.
The Illini, right?
Yeah, same mat. 2 years in a row, and I think I definitely let that affect me more than it should have. So living with that, right? Like, how do you, and it applies to way more than just wrestling and sports. Like, how do we kind of come to terms with some of these things that we know that we could have maybe accomplished a little bit more, could have, fought a little bit harder or persisted a little bit more, and
it's tough. It's tough. My high school coaches asked me about it too. I've seen him over the years. We've talked about those matches, and I had an opportunity. I was there. I had no injuries. I wasn't sick. I just lost. I got beat those days, and you have to accept that. Wrestling's extremely humbling because it's a one-on-one individual sport. So when you do get beat, I'll call it fail, whatever. When another guy beats you, his hand goes up, there's nowhere to hide. So I value everything wrestling has done for me and for my family. It's given me a career. It's taught me so many things, so many life lessons. It's molded me into who I am. So while I didn't obtain a goal in the sport of wrestling, I've been very lucky from the sport. It's given me a lot. I don't want to say I've used the sport, but I definitely have become a better person, a better husband, a better father, a better friend because of the sport of wrestling. And if you look at it from a grander scale, not just of wins and losses, you're going to get beat sometimes. And you can't hang on to it, 20, 25 years later and let it define you. Everybody wants to win, myself included. Every time a Reavis wrestler steps on the mat, I want him to win. Every time a Lincoln Way Wrestling Club wrestler steps on the mat that I'm coaching, I want him to win. And that's just not the reality. So I try to keep it in perspective, and I think about it, but you just can't let it eat you up like that either. You can't dwell on the past because it's just that. It's over.
You can't, people say you can't teach passion, and I think you can love something and still not be as passionate about it as maybe you are with wrestling. I remember walking into my first meet as a freshman, and I saw the way you had interacted with your varsity wrestlers. There was, I can define it maybe just as passion. You were, I don't want to say yell because there's a negative connotation to the word yell, but you were, the way you, like I said, the way you interact with the wrestlers, whether they're, it's off the mat, on the mat. Walking into my first match as a freshman on the freshman team, I knew I wanted that. I wanted to get to that level on varsity where we had those interactions, that relationship. And where does that passion come from? Because like I said, I feel like you can, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like you can love something and still not exhibit as much passion in the way that you do. Where did that start? Where does that come from?
Good question too. I certainly yelled more when I was a younger coach. I'd lose my voice just about every weekend. I still yell. I just try to pick my spots a little bit better. And I tell the kids, I'm yelling for you. I'm not yelling at you because, not always as tough as you guys were. Gosh, where does it come from? I had success in the sport at a young age, and I realized how much I enjoyed it. And I enjoyed being good at it. I enjoyed winning. And it's a tough pill to swallow when you get beat in this sport. Another guy's hand gets raised and yours doesn't. And I've always tried to do it the right way. Tried to work hard, tried to coach hard, tried to believe in my wrestlers. And the passion probably grew over the years because you put in the time, you invest, you put time into kids, into teams, and you want to see them succeed. I really tell kids that it's not about me. Well, every coach is competitive and they want to win too. It's not about us anymore, and we're trying to instill what we've learned over the years into you guys in such a short amount of time. And it's hard. You have to be passionate. You have to be, I'd say, aggressive, extremely hardworking in this sport because it's not like other sports. You can't just sit back and say, hey, it'll come to you. You got to kind of go and get it. And I've always, and I guess when I say lucky, I was kind of lucky to be in this sport. I was always an aggressive kid. I was always pretty confident and sure of myself. And I think you need a little bit of that moxie or confidence, passion in this sport, whether you're a competitor or a coach. So I don't know exactly where it came from, but I'd have to say that just over the years and seeing other really good coaches and other really good wrestlers, that it kind of fostered in me, and I started believing in myself more and wanting to help other kids and wanting to be a coach. I knew that, even when I was in high school, that I wanted to coach.
One thing that as I get older, I've really kind of thought about this a lot, maybe over the past few months, is I used to think motivation was really loud. You see a lot of motivational speeches, people are getting pretty loud, but the moment I felt the most motivated, at least here in the wrestling room, at a meet, at a tournament, was when I was getting ready to walk onto the mat and you just said, hey, we need 6 here. Or, hey, let's go. And it was not loud. It was not it was just so there was a level almost trust there. Where's your relationship with trust with wrestlers and kind of knowing that at a certain point, the motivational speeches are helpful, but toward just looking someone in the eye and saying, hey, this is what we need, let's go. Where does that come into play in your coaching career?
You learn kind of what motivates different kids over the years. Everybody's different. Every competitor is different, where some guys might, want to get yelled at and, smack them in the head and they're ready to go. And other guys don't respond to that. So I definitely have learned to handle individual wrestlers differently because, it's an individual sport. But that trust and the thing you're talking about there, I think that comes from just spending time together. And want to see who your horses are, who your best wrestlers are in the lineup. And when you're wrestling a dual meet, that's how you win dual meets. You need bonus points. And, you being a 6-pounder, I was a 103-pounder. So I definitely think that kind of plays a role in it too. You gravitate to where your weight class was and the guys you build a relationship with, especially at the varsity level. But, I've learned that 90% of your coaching is done in the practice room too. So you're not going to change too much Matt's side. The best thing you can do as a coach is, tell them I believe in you, support them, believe in yourself, go wrestle your match. And again, over the years, I've kind of learned that you wrestle every match with the kid. So I always try to, just tell them I'm in your corner. I'm with you. I'm here with you. We're doing this together. Not so much, screaming at them because I don't think that always helps. There's times to fix mistakes and teach, but I don't always think it should be done Matt's side. So, again, every wrestler's different. I've had guys I like to yell at, hey, get them pumped up, and you were a pretty intrinsically motivated wrestler. You didn't need to be yelled at. You were on weight. You were ready to go, and it mattered to you. So it's easier to motivate a wrestler, too, when they're all in. And when the sport means a lot to them, then you have that partnership, that bond that you're talking about, that we kind of just do it together. And that's when it's really great to be a coach. When you have kids who are all in and they want to be there and they bought into everything you're saying, that's the best part of the job, actually.
This question is more selfish. On that group, that 2014 class, the Sam Almusas of the world, the Mo, Jesus, what did you see out of us that might have differed from other classes?
4, then Kyle, right? You guys were all seniors, right?
Yeah.
So one thing we had with that group is you guys were hard workers. You were tough. We were all lightweights, right? You guys all cut some weight. And the best, well, you guys don't even know about this. We'd wrestle you up a weight class every dual meet, right? And then I'd bump you another weight class so we could wrestle Renee and Kevin underneath you guys. And we'd have 7 weight classes in a row that we could kind of run the table on people for bonus points. And that was tough to do. It's one thing to wrestle up a weight class. It's another thing to wrestle up a weight class and then get bumped as well. And you 5 guys could do it and win almost every night. So that was pretty cool, not just from a physical standpoint, but mentally you guys were pretty tough. And you knew you were wrestling for a conference championship. You knew you were wrestling for your team. And you were very unselfish to do that. You could have pinned the kid at 103 every night, but you went up and wrestled 119 for us, 120, and beat kids that you shouldn't have beat probably. And that made our team a whole lot better from a dual meet standpoint. But you guys were hard workers. You were committed. And you guys were fun. You were all kind of buddies. That makes it easier, too, throughout the course of a long season, spending 12, 14 hours a day on Saturdays. And I wish I'd known what I know now, because now every Saturday I take my team out to eat when we're done. I should have done that with you guys, but you learn over the coaching career, what works and what, helps bond teams together. But you guys were just tough, and you knew you were tough, and you wanted it. You wanted it for each other. And that was, I don't want to say an easy team to coach, but it was a lot of fun to coach because you guys were all in every day.
What's changed? What have you changed your mind on in coaching over the last few years that, when I usually ask this question, it's more kind of going back to like college or even high school days. Like, what did you care about so much back then that doesn't really matter now? And I think you can answer either one.
You mean like in wrestling?
Just, yeah, maybe wrestling or philosophy or just maybe like a life thing, right? Like, which can also, you can apply to coaching, or just what have you maybe changed your mind on, whether it's philosophy or the way you even live day to day?
I mean, maybe from a wrestling standpoint first, I probably show less technique over the course of the season. I think when you guys were there, I was maybe trying to show too much. As a younger coach, I wanted you guys to be exposed to good wrestling and good technique. And at times, maybe I showed too much, and you guys didn't have time to really drill it and develop it and really get good at it. And you've watched really good wrestlers. They don't do 25 moves. They do 5 or 6 things really, really, really well, and they're really hard to score on, if you want to put them in a box there. But they can do different things. They just wrestle their match. So maybe from a philosophy standpoint as a coach, I probably show a little less, reteach it more, and come back to things a little more often. And again, with you guys, we could grow you a little more because there is some talent and some experience in the lineup. I've had teams where they're a lot less experienced, and you have to modify your coaching. So, I've kind of learned that too, but over the years, you can't always start showing high-level technique in week 2 because you want to, and teams aren't always ready for it. So a little more reflective and looking in the mirror at what you have. And then when you don't have the best team, which is hard, it's humbling, being a little more realistic with expectations and still trying to get them better, find them success while keeping it attainable, So that's been one area that I think I've just matured, whether it be because I've put in the years or I've become a parent myself, just being a little more reflective on, they're really not that good. It's going to be hard for them to do that, but they can do this and give them the best chance they have to win. And then, from a personal standpoint, as a kid, a college kid, even when I was younger, I probably wasted a lot of time hanging out, I don't know, you say watching movies, whatever. And now that I'm very busy and I have 2 kids of my own, I'm coaching 3 sports, and it seems like my kids are playing sports. We just go, 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 go. I find that I'm almost more productive with the free time that I have. Again, it's maturing and growing up, but because I have no choice. You don't have this much free time anymore, and you forget when you're young how much free time you have. So, from those 2 reflective points, I would say that's probably it. I'm a little more productive when I have free time because I have to be, and then I just try to assess my team a little earlier each year and what can we do, what can't we do, and give them the best chance they have to be competitive.
On the first point, you would have had to do a lot to not get me to try a duck under every match. If that was a duck under right to a double or something.
You're very good at it.
Yeah.
And a Turk on the way down.
Even an ankle pick too. I loved those. But where's that balance to the second point? Where's the balance? Because I feel like I'm, there's a lot of things that, you're a father, you're a husband, and where do you balance that with how hard you want to work? Because I know it's self-explanatory. Like, you are a hard worker. You spend a lot of time here. There's sacrifice with your work and what you do in your career. Where do you find that balance between the things that genuinely make you happy and working hard? Because you can find happiness in working hard and achieving things and accomplishments and stuff like that. How do you balance that?
One, I have a really good wife who picks up all the slack when I'm here and takes care of the kids, and she has flexibility in her career that really has really allowed me to keep coaching. That if she wasn't doing what she's doing now, I probably would have had to give something up, if not a couple things. So, they're long days. When I'm coaching here, I get up about 5:15, I work out, I come to work, I coach. If my son has baseball or wrestling, I go coach him when I can. We walk in the door at like 8:30 at night sometimes, 8:15. They're long days. So I try to tell myself that you'll want this time back, and it won't always be there. Spending time with your kids, they're 6 and 4. And we're very lucky. We have a lot of friends and a big family that we try to see. And somehow we manage, we get through it. We do it all. Some weekends we don't sit down, but you do have to make sure, when I say your family, your spouse, your wife, my wife and I are on the same page that working hard is important to us. It's given us a great life, doing the extra things, and then spending time with our kids and our family is important to us as well. And, we just try to make it work. Every week we have a calendar. We look at it, we go, oh boy, it's going to be a busy week again. And I go, I'll be here for this. I can't be here for that. And she covers it, or we ask for help if we need to. But I think you find out what works for you and your family, in your life. And we like being busy, I guess, is the way I would put it. And I think before you can really enjoy the rest of your life, you got to be good at your job, and you have to work hard to be good at your job. And I always think about one day when you're done working or when you're not around or kids graduate, did you give them a fair shake? Were you fair to those kids? Did you give them an honest effort? And that kind of motivates me a lot because I don't want to be a coach or even a teacher that says, oh man, he didn't care. He just showed up and, he just sat there. He didn't want to coach wrestling hard. He sat in the corner, blew the whistle. So I can't do that. If I ever get to that point, I'll have to, stop coaching. But I got a little energy left and we're only about halfway through my career. So just take it, day by day, week by week and get through it.
When it comes to wanting what's best for your athletes, I feel like sometimes there's 14 to 18-year-olds think they know everything, think they know what's best for them. How do you build that trust? Because I remember specifically we actually had clinched our side of the conference at Tinley Park in 2014, and
you had your other ground because I wouldn't let you wrestle.
You didn't let me wrestle, and
your ankle was hurt.
Pissed. I was pissed, and looking back now at the age of 26, I can appreciate that, but how do you make those decisions that you that like in the moment and maybe even for years after they might like be pissed, and not to the point where I'm like, Coach Manning, but it's to the point where like, oh man, I wish I would have wrestled in the, conference clinching meet. But, like I said, hindsight, it's like, okay, like he was looking out for my best interest. How do you find that middle ground where I know what they want, but I know what they need?
It's a good point. That's part of, I guess, our profession or even parenting is we don't ever get to see like the full finished product. You might see kids be conference champs or even state champs, but the time and effort you put into kids, they take it with them and hopefully they turn into really successful young men like you and they're hard workers and you can say, hey, I had an impact on him or her. But you got to remind yourself that they're kids, and I don't take things personally. Kids, a really smart guy told me this years ago. He said, kids are not dumb by any means. They make bad decisions sometimes. You don't always think it through as an adult might. Adults make mistakes too. Let's get serious. But try to keep that in mind. Try to, make decisions that are in their best interest without deterring them from, especially a sport like wrestling that's very hard. But in the beginning of my career, I was probably a little more aggressive to tell a kid when they were wrong. I can get in their face and tell them why I was right, and that didn't always go well either. I think I had kids quit because you chew them out and tell them what they did was wrong and they should listen to me, and you were late for practice or you did this move wrong. So I've tried to, keep them with me. If I run a kid off or I ruin that relationship, I can't help them anymore. And you say it's 4 years, but if you quit on me as a sophomore, if you quit on the team, I can't help you junior and senior year. So I probably learned to accept a little bit of mistakes and, hey, we can't do that. This is why. Or, hey, you were late for practice again. And try to keep them on the right track and try to keep reminding them without, running them off, I guess is my point of view. And just remember that they're kids. They're going to make mistakes. That's part of the learning process. You got to accept some of that, in this profession.
What life lessons have you taken from wrestling? I don't know if I would have accomplished, and not saying like super accomplished, but even just past few months waking up, I used to wake up not late, but I would just in time to maybe eat something really quick and then hop on my 9 o'clock meeting. And now I am trying to see how much earlier and earlier I can wake up in the day so I can fit more into my day, more productive things, working out. And now I'm working out every morning, getting to the gym by 7:30. Maybe I'm trying to read a little bit more in the morning too. And just, I don't think I would have been able, maybe it's discipline and consistency, but I don't think I would have am able to do these things without wrestling. What has come into play for you that you maybe like directly attribute to the sport?
There's a lot of things. I think you're right. Athletes in general, I think, are a little more successful or hardworking than someone who wasn't an athlete. Just from the time management standpoint and the sacrifices. But when it comes to wrestling, I kind of hang my head on a couple things, and I try to instill them in all of our wrestlers. One is work ethic. Very rarely you're going to see a good wrestler who gets outworked in life. I say you can take hard work with you no matter what you do in life. If you're tough and you work hard at it, you can be successful. So the work ethic is a big thing because, like you say, that alarm clock goes off every day, Monday through Friday. And we all like our job, but there's still work and there's still sacrifice every day you have to make to be successful. No one's going to feel sorry for you if you don't have, the toughness to do it. So work ethic is a big one. I really think wrestling teaches mental toughness. It's a humbling sport. It's not just physically tough, it's mentally tough. Competing one-on-one and just going to practice for 2.5 hours, day in and day out, and working that hard. You have to be a mentally tough person. And I think to be successful in life, you have to be pretty mentally tough too. There's going to be days you just don't want to do what you have to do, but hey, you got a 14-hour day, you get up and go do it. So those are two of the biggest for me. And you could talk to 30 coaches, they'll probably give you 30 similar answers. And the last one that I think wrestling does for, especially guys like us who are smaller, is it always gave me confidence. And I was good at something young, and it gave me an identity. My friends knew I was a wrestler. I was the smallest kid in every group of friends I had. I still am. But it gave me confidence at a young age. It gave me an identity. And I think that's important too. It's what athletics really does. It gives kids that confidence. It gives them a group of friends. They have their buddies. They have their teammates. And it's a big part of life is how do I fit in? What's my role? And then you meet people that way. If you're confident and you're sure of yourself, I guess. So those are the three biggest, I think, that I've taken away from the sport and that have helped me just as a person.
The Reavis community, I touched on it earlier. The Reavis community means a lot to me. Like I said, when I come back, I feel like, it sounds so like cheesy, but like it feels like home. I come back and I feel like I'm taken care of by, like I said, guys like you and Erickson. I always have a spot in the dugout with Erickson, and that's much appreciated. What does it mean to you? Because I know you've been here for a long time. What is, the relationships, not only, with your coworkers, with your athletes, with alumni, what is the community meant to you?
Yeah, I've been here 16 years, and I went to Stagg High School, so not far away. Similar demographics as far as the high schools growing up, and I felt right away I kind of aligned with Reavis, with the community. They're blue collar, they're hardworking, they're tough, and I was very lucky. I fit right in. The community really accepted me. Reavis High School, the school board, gave me an opportunity to be a head coach when I was really young. I think I was only 26 when I got the job. So I've always been very appreciative of that and their confidence they've instilled in me. But it's a big deal to be a head coach at a high school that's been around since 1950. And I'm very loyal. I don't ever want to leave Reavis High School. I have no intentions on leaving. Work my career, my whole life here, 33 years before you can retire. And I like that. I like when, you pop out somewhere, you go to a restaurant with the kids, people know you, alumni come back. And I've always tried to respect those that did it before me. Coach Novak and I spent 4 good years together. And before that, it was Coach Stearns, who was, 17-year head coach. He's one of my closest friends still to this day and one of my strongest mentors. So I've always, tried to look at it from that aspect as well. But it's not really my program. I'm just lucky enough to watch over it right now for Reavis High School and for Burbank. And I try to keep that in mind. When you meet an older guy who wants to tell you a story about his days here in the 70s or his 60s. And I like that nostalgia, and I like being part of that.
It's my second to last one. When you walk into that wrestling room, even when no one's in there, just walk in. What do you feel? What does it feel like? What is it? Do you not in like the weird type of, but do you hear things? Do you hear whistles? Do you hear guy, the crowd? What do you experience when you walk into that wrestling room by yourself? Did you get hit with nostalgia? Do you get hit with, and you still have many, many more years. This by no means is a look back on your career, but what do you experience when you walk into that room alone?
I remember some of our close duels up there. We've had some close ones with Argo or, Oak Forest over the years, right, when you guys were here. So I remember some of our close conference matches. A lot of times, I take a look at it, make sure it's not messy from somebody else being in there like a gym class, to be honest with you, because it is our space. I like to take some ownership of it. But to be honest, a lot of times when I'm in our wrestling room, I feel some expectations. I take coaching very seriously, and I always want to make sure that I'm doing a good job, that I'm not missing anything, but I'm not, shortchanging our wrestlers. I'm not forgetting to teach them this, or I'm not putting them through enough conditioning. So when I'm up there a lot, it's kind of where I do my hardest work, in my opinion, here, from 3:20 to 5:30 or every day during the winter. But I enjoy being up there. I feel at home. I shower up there just about every day, whether it's before school or after school. But I feel some expectations, to be honest. I'm the head wrestling coach at Reavis High School, and I want to put out the best wrestling team I can for this school and make those kids that have committed to the team the best wrestlers they can be. And I take it seriously. We don't always win. I'd like us to be a little more competitive than we have been the last 5-6 years. But I always give it my best effort, and I like being up there. I couldn't imagine wrestling anywhere else here. I'd hate to have to move mats every day. We're pretty lucky to have what we have up there. But yeah, I'm up there a lot. And when I'm up there, I'm usually thinking about how can we get better? What are we not doing good enough right now that other teams are? So question myself a lot when we are up there.
I always end with one. What makes your story so unique, but also so relatable, so achievable for someone who wants to have as much passion as you do for something, someone who wants to be as good of a father as you, because those are, I think my role models are definitely, fluctuating, and it's changing. I feel like even by the day, sometimes we want a lot, and it's like, well, actually, you can, like, a great life is having such passion for something, being a great father, a great husband, and you're someone that, a role model that hasn't fluctuated or that hasn't left as you. Like, I look up to you, and so for someone who wants, just as much as you give to life, to athletes, to your wife, your kids, everyone around you, what makes your story unique, but also so relatable that anyone can do it?
I appreciate that, for one. You know how much we enjoyed coaching you when you were here. And this is really cool, by the way. This is neat. I always love seeing alumni, but this is awesome that you're doing this and doing so well. I don't know if my story's all that special. I was just a kid in Palos Park. I had great parents who supported me. I was born in between two sisters who were awesome. So I always joke, I don't know how I became a tough wrestler with two sisters. I should have been pretty soft, but yeah, I got into wrestling. It stuck. My family supported me in it from day one, and it always mattered to me. It always mattered to me. I wanted to be a good wrestler, and I learned to work hard at it. Again, I had really good coaches over the years that instilled that in me. I was fortunate enough to be at Stagg High School. Both my coaches are IWCO Hall of Famers. My head coach is in the National Hall of Fame. His name's Dave Anderson. So him and Terry Mulrudden, and even guys like Tim Filippini who coached me, I was fortunate, and I'd never lost sight of that. That from day one, I've had really good people around me who put a lot of time into me and helped me, stay on the right path. And I needed more help than most at times. I was a kid. I made mistakes. So I guess, you're to touch on the role models changing as you get older and you mature in life. Like, your wants will change too, and what motivates you will change. There was so long, all that motivated me was I wanted to be a state champ, and I wanted to work at wrestling. And I had friends, and I went out, and my social life was important to me. And then You want to go to college, you want to get a job, you want to have a career, make some money, and then, slowly but surely start maturing and adulting, if you want to call it that. But I've always thought that what's helped me or made me a little unique is if I wanted something, if I wasn't happy, I never pointed fingers or complained. I never made excuses, and I think that's important, that I just said, okay, if I want to do this, I have to work harder at it. If I want to achieve this, well, I have to work harder at it. And that's one thing that I would say has defined me, or something I've always said to myself, well, I don't care how hard it gets or what comes at me and my family and life, we can get through it. It just might be hard. So I don't know if I'm special or any different than any other wrestler or wrestling coach, but I know that I'm fortunate. And over the years, I owe a lot of my fortune to other people who've helped me. And I think that's important, that when you have success, when you are successful, there are people that helped you along the way. And I've never lost sight of that.
Thank you. This has been fun. Conversation that I don't think, if you told me we had this when I first met you back in like 2010, I don't know if I would have believed it. Like, this is cool. This feels in a way full circle, but by no means the end of that circle. I hope we continue to stay connected. I'll definitely come and hang out and roll around as much as I can.
We'd like that. You're welcome anytime, you know that. And this was awesome. Thanks for having me.